brand new Last of Us spoiler review here on Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Stenberg. If you're new to the channel, I do movie reviews, these types of TV show reviews, movie rankings, and box office breakdown shows every single Tuesday. So please subscribe, ring the bell if you're new to the channel. Today we're bringing down episode 8, when we are in need of The Last of Us on HBO. I do a full breakdown of the episode, my connection to the video games, how closely this ties into the video game. But again, I do not spoil a single thing that is set up obviously in the finale and obviously in season 2. So there's no spoilers. So even if you haven't played the games, you're good. I'm only talking about the video game as it pertains to this episode. Also, like the video, guys. The thumbs up button down below really helps support this channel. And also comment down below. First of all, have you played the games? Are you guys excited for the finale? Let me know where you are on The Last of Us. Let's get into it. So I knew this episode was going to be crazy because obviously, if you're new to the channel, this is the first time you're checking out one of my reviews. I've played The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2, as well as I have watched the cutscenes over like 3 or 4 times each for each game. So love this universe. And this, I think, was the episode that was closely tied with the game the most. And I think that's why a lot of people who play the games think that this is their favorite episode, because I think it does capture the game perfectly, which actually is why I think this is actually might be my favorite overall episode of the series, because it's so close to the game. But not just is it close to the game, it has some nice enhancements of a couple performances, and little details that are a little bit different from the game, which I really enjoyed. So I knew it was going to be crazy because I knew it was going to be about really the cannibals versus Ellie this episode. And a lot of people were asking me, oh, are you excited for the last 2 episodes? I said, episode 8. You thought episode 7 was really great? I said, episode 8 is going to be nuts, because I saw the trailer and it already looked like it was going to be the cannibals. I was like, this is going to be a fun episode to watch. And it was a very creepy, dark, violent episode of The Last of Us, which I thought was great. So this episode, again, Joel is kind of laid out. Ellie doesn't really know how to completely take care of him. And she's trying to get food. She shoots, even though they see a white rabbit, which is the most viral aspect of the game. In the video game, there's a beautiful white rabbit. It's one of the most only like cute moments in the entire game. And then when the rabbit's walking, Ellie shoots it. It's really violent. And everyone's reaction to that moment has kind of been gone viral. But then we see the deer, and then this is where we run into David and James. So David is played by Scott Shepherd, who I don't remember seeing in anything. He says he was in Bridge of Spies. He was also in, he played John Gray, the father Jean Grey, in Dark Phoenix, but again, nothing major that makes him stick out to me. And then you have James, who's played by Troy Baker. Now, I know a lot of people who probably watched this, so I have no idea who this person is. But Troy Baker is the one who played Joel in the video games, and he is a tremendous actor. And it was great to see him get, again, a lot of people. We've seen Marlene. She's playing herself, though, like she was in the video game. We've seen the guy who played Tommy. We've seen the guy who's played Joel now in these 2 games. So that's also just a lot of great stuff from a Neil Druckmann point of view. But she runs into David and James, and David's like, we have a whole group of people we need to feed. And then, Ellie's like, I have a whole other group of people to feed. And a lot of this dialogue, I watched the whole, especially even to make sure. And IGN did a video of like a breakdown of the dialogue. And it is pretty much, and I was watching of someone last night who has never seen the video games. This is her first introduction to it. And she was trying to say stuff, and I just couldn't say anything because this was seriously at times word for word, scene for scene, like the video game. So basically, she does like a trade type of thing. She's like, I need medicine. I'll give you half the deer, and I just want the medicine for my friend. So James runs off, and then we get this kind of one-on-one in the fire with David and Ellie. And this is where we kind of get the revenge. We start off the episode with this little girl who's really mad at David because her father is dead, and they want to bury the father. Obviously, he's not burying the father. All their dead people they used to cook and eat themselves, which is so grotesque in this episode. He kind of slaps her later on because he's kind of like, we found her, and then he like slaps this freaking like little girl, and it's really yikes. But as we get to this point, they have this conversation where David clearly we kind of start everything with kind of being this religious cult leader. And then we realize it's kind of a front. He's not, the stuff he's reading out, he isn't like totally believing it. He's kind of just, again, a survivalist type of person. But But this is where David says everything happens for a reason. He said, the guy who killed our person, he's a crazy man. And guess what? He was with a little girl. And then she freaks out and it kind of all comes together. James comes in with the gun and he's like, just give her the medicine and we'll go find her later. And everyone's kind of mad about this because they want her dead because she's also a part of it. And David just sees himself in Ellie, which we find out later in the episode. So now they start to go after Ellie, and this is where Ellie tells Joel, and he's like a fourth awake, like he's barely awake. And she's like, well, here's the knife. If someone comes, you got to do something. Like, you got to kill them. So Ellie's on the run. She gets her horse. Shimmer gets killed, which I knew the horse dies, but they do call the horse Shimmer in the show. And I think that was Shimmer. I could be wrong. I forgot what happened a couple weeks ago, but Shimmer was her horse in Last of Us Part 2. So I'm very interested to see what happens there. Again, that's an Easter egg. It's not really a spoiler for anything. That's just a horse in Part 2. Not hers in particular, just a horse in Part 2. So we'll see if that was indeed Shimmer. So Ellie gets captured, and literally James is about to kill her, and David shoots up like, we're not killing her. I'll bring her back. You guys all look for the crazy man. Joel goes off on like a killing spree. It's one of my favorite like top 2-3 scenes of the video game, which is Joel's interrogation of this guy where he sticks the knife at his knees, like, I'll take your kneecap out, point to something on the map. Your partner better point to the same thing. He points to it, then Joel just kills him. And then the other dude's like, well, Joel's like, I believe him, so I don't really need you anymore. And he kills him. It's such a great scene, and they really executed that really great in the show. But David locks up Ellie, and this is where you get this great acting performances from Scott Shepherd and Bella Ramsey, who is really improving episode by episode. The episode 7 was her best, and now I think this is definitely by far Bella Ramsey's best performance of the show so far. And Scott Shepherd is fabulous in this episode. He plays a guy who right away something is off, because in the video game, when you meet David, the first inkling is obviously you don't, and this is the first time, at this point in the video game, this is the first time that you play as Ellie. Which is very different from when you play as Joel in the first video game. But as this goes on, I said the big difference is that when you meet David, you don't trust David, but there's something that you do kind of want to trust him because he is very unselfish in the scenes that he's in before he turns into the person who we know. Right away in this show, they establish right away that something is off with this guy. They don't really throw it at you. He feels like a cult leader, but there's something under the surface clearly. Which I actually think it is the rare improvement I think this show has over the game, which is making sure that David feels off right away. They don't really give him a breath of hope that he's a good person. The first scene on, you kind of feel like something is wrong with this dude. And then obviously we learned that this is where he kind of cuts up people, and we saw earlier where the guy had like the meat, and she's like, what is that? And he's like, it's venison. And you can tell both people knew it was like cannibals. It's absolutely disgusting. So they're cannibals for survival. Ellie freaks out. Ellie rips his arm. She gets knocked into the railing. And what you're expecting, I think, and Neil Druckmann talks about this, how I think people, if you play the game for the first time, and if you probably watch this for the first time, you're probably expecting Joel to kind of swoop in and save the day. But what's great about the show, and I think these are kind of real life situations, Ellie really needed to figure out this on her own. And this is where Ellie kind of helps burn the place on fire, but she kind of gets into this one-on-one matchup with David, and she kills him. Like, she whacks him 10 times. Now, this is slightly different from the game. In the game, it's just like the game, she does kill David like 10 times. Now, she used this little knife to kill him in the game. It was like a machete, and it was so violent. But they shut all of her anger out. And then she comes out, I think, the best scene of the whole show so far. Ellie comes out, and there's Joel. Obviously, Joel really couldn't save her. I mean, he's just trying to get there. And I love that they kept that Joel does not come in to make the save. But, she's all over the place. She's a very violent person. And there are similarities that are tough to hear between David and Ellie, and that she is loyal, she is a leader, but she is a violent person. And I think it was a really tough thing to hear, but it's definitely the truth, especially when you get to the end of the episode. But she's kind of freaking out. Joel, Ellie goes in for the hug, and Joel says, it's okay, baby girl. Now, that's a huge line, and really, again, touched me every time I watched the video game, and every time when I played it, watched it, and now when I'm watching the show, because he only called his daughter baby girl. And obviously this is the first time in over 20 years he's calling someone that. So that was a big move, and clearly now you see the father-daughter relationship that has spewed now between Joel and Ellie. And that's where we kind of leave this episode. I love this episode. I think it's probably my favorite of the season so far. I think it's really a perfect episode of television. This is coming one of my favorite shows of all time. It's already one of my favorite video games. It's one of my favorite video game of all time. This and like the Spider-Man PS4 game for me are like my two favorite video games of all time. So it's tough to like root over one over the other. But I am very excited but interested in the finale. There is still a lot to do for the finale. So even though most of these episodes, except the first one, have been kind of an hour long, I would not be shocked if this goes well over an hour, like an hour and 20 maybe, for the finale. There's still a lot to do. And I do think they want to finish the first video game in the first season and do the second video game for the second season. I would be shocked if they kind of take you all the way here and then kind of leave you on a cliffhanger before the big ending of The Last of Us. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to even hint at anything that happens next week, but that's my breakdown of episode 8 of The Last of Us. I love this show, and I'm very excited. It's sad that we only have one more Sunday night to watch The Last of Us. It's already been renewed for season 2, but last episode Last of Us for a couple of years at least. So I can't wait to talk about it with you guys next Monday here on the channel. More videos are coming here on the channel, including today, releasing near the same time as this will be my ranking of all 9 Rocky/Creed films. We're going to do that ranking today. Also on Tuesday, you'll get my box office breakdown show. Wednesday, I'll get my review of the new episode of The Mandalorian. Thursday, I'll get my new review of The Bad Batch. Also on Thursday, you're going to get my review of Scream 6. And then back here on Monday doing a Last of Us spoiler review, and then same as usual. So that's our next week of videos here on the channel. So please subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys soon.